With the 2023 Manx Grand Prix now just around the corner, thousands of fans on and off island will be waiting eagerly for their next taste of racing on the Snaefell Mountain course, with the racing event getting underway on Sunday. Last year, MGP underwent some significant alterations, most notably a change from the 2-week format to a more condensed 9-day schedule, which will once again be in place for 2023. Whilst organisers have stated the shorter programme is helping to secure the long-term future of the races, it's a move that didn't go down well with all fans or teams last year. So with racing returning imminently, what's the feeling like amongst the fans? I caught up with MGP Supporters Club Chairman Allan Brew.
Yeah, I mean, the new format was okay. Disappointing for a lot of people. Purists for the Manx Grand Prix, they've always been used to a 2-week format. So going to a 10-day format, which it was last year, was disappointing. Resulted in a loss of 1 or 2 races that we've had previously. So from that point of view, it was disappointing. The event actually did go quite well. We were lucky with the weather, which is obviously a factor when you reduce the format down to 10 days. And it's the same for this year, which again, from a personal point of view, that is disappointing.
And they've brought in a couple of new classes. They've expanded what was the lightweight class. The ultra lightweight's coming back in as well. So what do you make of that, the fact that it's being opened out more this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's a positive move, definitely. The lightweight race last year didn't have many entries or many finishes, so that was disappointing for the fans. So to open up the event to include more entries is good. The change last year from previous years was that the pure MGP race called the lightweight was open to TT riders as well. So that was a major change last year, and that's going to be the same again this year.
Now you get some people wondering, with the MGP going forward, how many years has it still got left in it? The organisers of the Manx Motorcycle Club insist that this is not the last year of the Manx Grand Prix and that this new format is ensuring the longevity of it for the future. Where do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see a future for the MGP and for the TT. Both events bring a lot of people to the island, so the income that brings to the island is beneficial. So why would we want to lose 1 or 2 of those events? It doesn't make sense. The format, I think, can be reviewed and looked at and improved on for next year possibly. The hope from last year was that this year's event, being the centennial, possibly may be open back up to 2 weeks, but that hasn't happened.
And outside of the format, for example, are there any other things that caught the eye of fans that maybe you heard about in terms of things people like, maybe didn't like of last year?
The major thing was that they were disappointed actually with the format. They've been used to, as I said earlier, 2 weeks of the Manx Grand Prix, and to have it reduced and finish on the Bank Holiday Monday and then nothing else after, at the end of that week. And obviously last year a lot of people had booked for the full 2 weeks, been carried over from COVID, etc. So they were on the island when racing finished and nothing else was much going on. So that was disappointing.
Turning to another side of it, it's a very important year for the Manx Grand Prix 2023, marking 100 years of the Manx Grand Prix here on the Isle of Man. So what does the Manx Grand Prix mean to you personally?
Personally, a huge amount of history. I've been involved personally with the Manx Grand Prix since 1976. I started racing myself in 1976, entered the Manx Grand Prix in 1978 in the first newcomers race, and didn't finish racing until 2016. So I've been involved for over 40 years, off and on, with the Manx Grand Prix. And to make it to the 100th anniversary is a huge event. So it's a big achievement. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see what happens.
And in terms of, the Isle of Man has numerous motorsport events, both on the mountain course and the Balaun course. In terms of the Manx Grand Prix, what is its key identity? What makes it stand out in its own right?
It has been the fact that the Manx Grand Prix has always been regarded as the amateur TT. That's what most people want to achieve, is to race in the Manx Grand Prix, see how they get on, do 2 or 3 years, and then possibly move on to the TT. The format and the races have changed slightly, and it's not purely an amateur event anymore. There's a mix of so-called amateurs and professional riders. So it's quite a big change compared to what I used to race in back in 78. Reduced number of entries for a start off. When I raced in 78, I think in one of the races I was number 113. So a lot more riders, a lot more on the grid. That's been reduced, obviously, for health and safety reasons. So it's disappointing, but that's change.
And what do you make of the blend now that has been within the Manx Grand Prix for a few years now of both what you've said there is it can be a platform to the things like TT if people are aspiring to that, but also one big draw is the classic machines as well. What do you make of the combination of the two at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the Manx has had classics since 1983 when they were introduced, so they've been there a long time, the classics. The classics were always open to non-MGP riders, so anybody could basically ride in the classics. So that hasn't really changed. What has changed is the opening up the classics to TT riders, TT teams. They've come into it when the Classic TT was created, which I was part of as well. I raced in the Classic TT. And the format was really good, a mix of the amateur Manx Grand Prix races and the Classic TT races. So I see that format positive. I've got some questions over the eligibility of some of these classics, but that's another story.
Let's take a look a little bit then, with it being 100 years, just of the history of the MGP Supporters Club, and everyone knows what they do, but there are other aspects, and I know you've got some comments on this to make. It's not just the MGP Supporters Club here on the island. There are other aspects as well that have built it to what it is.
That's right. There's been huge support for the Manx Grand Prix Supporters Club since 1975. But probably what a lot of people don't realise is that there was another organisation called the Manchester 17 Motorcycle Club, and they actually started fundraising for a rescue helicopter way back in 1970. So they actually started that, and there was a guy called Ian Bradshaw, who's now a local resident. In 1970, he'd been over to watch the Manx, and he'd realised that there was a rescue helicopter that year for the TT, but not for the Manx Grand Prix. So he returned back home. He met with other members of the Manchester 17 Motorcycle Club, and they agreed that they were going to raise funds to support a rescue helicopter. And with the agreement of the Manx Grand Prix Committee that year in 1970 and the ACU, they started fundraising, and they provided enough money, raised enough money through various initiatives to pay for the Manx Grand Prix rescue helicopters between 1971 and 1975. Talking about initiatives, one of the initiatives then that happened in 1973 to raise funds included a 24-hour sponsored ride around the TT course. Triumph actually supplied a Trident as a motorcycle, and Ian Bradshaw, along with two travelling marshals, Des Evans and Alan Killip, took part in this sponsored ride. For that, Jeff Duke actually flagged the lap. Timing was done by Neil Hansen, who's our current club president, and commentary was actually from Peter Neal on Manx Radio. So some famous names there, and all connected with the Manx Grand Prix.
And of course, one of the names you mentioned there, some sad news coming out this week regarding someone who's been a veteran of the mountain course.
Yeah, I mean, have to pay tribute to, and he can only be called the legend Kipper Killip. We've just had the very sad news that we've lost Kipper, and our thoughts are with his family and friends.
Looking ahead then to this year, just on another note once more, with all that we've spoken about, like you said, that some fans were maybe disappointed with the change in format last year. You yourself have said that maybe you'd like to see it reviewed going forward. So what we have now going into Manx Grand Prix 2023, what would you and the fans class as a successful and a good year for the event? I think
obviously from a point of view of the supporters club, we want everybody to have a safe and enjoyable ride, no accidents. And hopefully the weather plays ball and we have every race going ahead and as scheduled.
And another aspect as well that we've heard about this week, there's been a call again for marshals on certain days as well. I mean, from the supporters club side of things, what conversations do you have maybe with marshals in terms of those who maybe qualify to affiliate with the supporters club that could help out? What may happen there?
The main thing is there's been quite a few changes with the Marshals Association. I used to marshal myself for the TT for many years. Various things have happened, change in the organisation, etc., etc. That has caused, I think, some local marshals to hang up their tabards. I would just appeal to any of those marshals to ensure that this year goes ahead. I know the appeal's gone out, but I would also appeal that if there's any marshals out there, please come forward, put the tabard back on, and let's have a safe and a successful Manx Grand Prix. So I mentioned that the Manchester 17 Motorcycle Club, they raised funds for the rescue helicopter between 1971 and 1975. In 1975, that's the year the MGP Supporters Club was formed and took over the helicopter fundraising. And since 1976, the helicopter fund has provided cover for both practice and race days. Up until then, it had just been for race days. I would like to, on behalf of the Manx Grand Prix Supporters Club, thank Ian Bradshaw personally and all those involved with the Manchester 17 Motorcycle Club in those early days. People to also remember and thank include Raymond Cayley, Gwen Crellin, John Cameen, Sally and Vern Wallace, and also Lee Robinson, who, along with husband Bill, supported our club for many years. Unfortunately, we have also lost Lee recently, and our thoughts are with Bill, family and friends. Without people like these, the Supporters Club could not exist. As the Isle of Man government now cover the cost for all motorsport rescue helicopters, we took the decision last year to cease fundraising for the rescue helicopters and agreed to also support the MGP riders with a financial payment to help with their ever-increasing costs. This year, this support will be in excess of £50,000. We also continue to raise funds to support injured MGP riders and funding for essential medical equipment, such as a payment this year of £10,000 to help with the cost of replacing all the course-side medical kits used by marshals and medics. So many thanks to all who continue to support us.
And also as well, just on a final note, there is another aspect to this year as well to involve the fans. We have the centenary lap on the 27th of August, so within that race weekend. The fact that we have something like this, some other events going on away from Douglas as well during the week, how important is it that we have things like this and other things besides to keep including the supporters to make sure they keep feeling involved and keep feeling welcomed here and that their input matters in these events?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, it's the 100th anniversary. We need to commemorate and remember past and present. And part of that, I was asked beginning of the year actually to think about organising a parade lap, and that's what we've agreed to do. And so on Sunday the 27th, from the grandstand, there'll be a parade lap setting off, possibly with a minute's noise beforehand to remember those, past and present, as I mentioned. And this lap has been organised with ourselves and with Gary Thompson from ACU Events. It'll be a speed-controlled lap on open roads. Just want to remind people of that. It's not a closed roads lap. And an opportunity to commemorate the history of the MGP, ride the world-famous course, and remember all the greats past and present.
Thank you for having the stamina to make it to the end of the Manx Radio Sportscast. You're clearly someone who has their eye on the ball at all times. Want to hear more about the latest sporting news across the Isle of Man and much more? Then might I recommend you take the plunge and subscribe to this series or a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so that, in a flash, all of our finest moments take a winner's place on your smartphone. Thank you.